I'm Mark Wright, president of VIA San Francisco, and I'm here to talk to you today about our new promotion, the VIA Ultimate Toolkit Deal. I think it's important to understand, before we get into the details of the scissors, what this whole toolkit concept is about. For many years, hairdressers have gone to beauty school. They're given a 5.5-inch shear and they're given a thinning shear in almost every school in the country, and that's what they're trained with. And oftentimes they don't get any knowledge at the beauty school beyond that about the other types of scissors that are available. And of course, the types of scissors that are available has changed quite a bit in the last few years, largely because of actions on the part of VIA, where we've been innovating and creating new tools that didn't exist in the past. And so it falls to us to really make sure that we're doing a proper job of educating hairdressers about what kind of toolkit would make them the most efficient hairdresser in today's world. And it goes way beyond that 5.5-inch shear and that basic thinning shear. So that's really the toolkit concept, and we'll get into the specific shears that are part of it here in a moment. The other thing I think it's important to establish right at the outset, that this is a deal essentially on 2 series of shears plus an additional shear. So it's a deal that incorporates our Classic series, and of course in the Classic series there's the new Soft Cut Classics, which are brand new this year. And it includes the Spin series, and once again, the Spin series has also got new soft cut shears that have been added. And then finally, it includes the Dry Evolution shear. And the Dry Evolution shear is an enhanced scissor above the level of the Classic or the Spin that comes in both a fixed and rotating handle that a stylist could upgrade one of their scissors to. So that's the tools that are incorporated in this deal, and it's very important to understand that right from the get-go. Now, all of these tools, and this is what really is fun, are available in both right and left-handed sizes, or styles, and they're also all available at the exact same price, regardless of the length of the shear or whether it's right or left-handed. So all of the Classic and Spin shears are $269, except for the soft cuts, which are $299, and then the Dry Evolution is $369. So knowing that everything fits into those simple prices makes it easy for you guys to explain to the stylist, the value of these tools. Now, the Classic and the Spin shears are all made out of molybdenum alloy steel, which is a very high-grade Japanese material, and they all have the Teflon inlay in the pivot of the shear, which is designed to eliminate the metal against metal contact in the pivot. And of course, the beauty of that is that the shear stays feeling like a new shear throughout the entire lifespan, which can be as long as 20 years or more of the shear. So that Teflon inlay and the molybdenum alloy blades put these into a very elite category of scissors. The only shear that comes to mind for me that offers those features outside of VIA would be the Hikari New Cosmo. And the Hikari New Cosmo has Teflon pivots and molybdenum alloy blades, but it's also an $829 shear, whereas we're offering that kind of quality and performance for only $269.95. So, that establishes the incredible value that VIA shears brings pretty clearly, I think. Now, the Dry Evolution is more expensive because it's made out of what's called VG10, which is a combination of cobalt, molybdenum, and vanadium. And those 3 materials combined put that material at the very top of all the Japanese materials that are used for scissors nowadays. So a VG10 scissor from other manufacturers can be $1,000 or more, but again, because we own our production facilities and we strive to keep our prices affordable for stylists, our VG10 Dry Evolution shear is only $369.95, and it not only has the Teflon pivot, but but it has ball bearings as well. So that now the blade is rolling on a bearing instead of just sliding on a washer, which is the state of the art for how scissors can be made right now. And yet it's still only $369. So, you know, we're talking about super high quality tools here at very affordable prices, even before we get into the toolkit concept. One other important thing to be aware of is that all VIA shears are ergonomically designed. So the classic shear is a crane handle that allows the stylist to work with their wrist straight and their elbow down when they're cutting on the side of the head. That's huge. But they also have this bend in the thumb, so when they go to cut on the top, they can still keep the wrist straight and elbow down, as opposed to having to come up like this to put their thumb into the hole. They can lay their thumb into the side of the hole like that and operate the shear with the wrist straight and the elbow down. So even with our fixed handle design, they're still very ergonomic. Now, of course, the other style that's included in this deal are the spin shears. And the spin shears, as we've talked about in the past, are rotating thumb scissors. Now, the rotating thumb scissors still has some ergonomic advantages even over the classic, in that the hand stays more open. You can see how much more separated my thumb and finger are with this versus my thumb and finger with the more traditional fixed handle classic, right? So the more open the hand, the more strength the hand has, and the less you stretch the thumb tendon, which means less wear and tear on the thumb tendon, less likelihood of carpal tunnel issues and tendonitis issues developing. Whenever I show the rotating thumb scissors, I always like to show the hairdressers 3 things really quickly before I even hand them the scissor, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. The first thing is cutting on the side of the head with the elbow down and the hand open, which is a terrific thing to be able to do. You can always take a shear from them and stack it against this and show the difference in the thumb movement. Both blades are open, but without the rotating thumb, you've got farther to travel to finish closing the shear. So the reduced thumb movement of having the open hand is another thing to show. Then the important thing is to show how the rotation allows them to cut on top without having to elevate their elbow, or to point cut around the fringe, around the client's face without having to have the elbow up in this kind of a position. So those are things that you always want to point out to stylists before you hand them a rotating shear. And if you do it first, before you give them the shear, then their first impression with the shear will already be tempered by the fact that, oh, there are these advantages I should learn to take advantage of. Whereas if you hand it to them without explaining why it rotates before you hand it to them, they often form a negative opinion because it feels different to them before they even understand the tool. So point those things out before you hand them the shear. Now, I keep talking about handing them the shear because another thing that VIA does that other manufacturers just are unwilling to do is we equip you with everything you need to present this promotion. So you're going to have a briefcase like this one that's got 10 pairs of scissors staring at the stylist when you walk through the door. And those 10 scissors are going to allow you to effectively show everything you need to show here. But it's not like you'll have every scissor that's available within the promotion. For example, you'll only have one left-handed shear. You'll only have one seamless blender. So you'll have to show the seamless blender that you have and explain that it's available in both the fixed and the rotating handle. The same thing with the point cut texture shears or the 3D texture shears that we'll talk about in a moment, or the slide cutting shears. You're only going to have one or the other of each of them, but you will have one of each style so that you can effectively show the entire promotion. And so it's very important to understand that. And the other thing that's important to understand is that this tool will only work for you if you carry it in the salon. If you leave this bag sitting in the trunk of your car when you call on salon, it's not going to have nearly the impact for you as if you walk in. If you walk in with this, you won't have to say why you're there. They'll know you're there to show them scissors, and that's when it becomes your opportunity to do some education. So the education that goes along with the toolkit concept is this idea of adding new modern tools to make yourself a more efficient hairdresser. So we talked in the beginning about the 5.5-inch shear and the blending shear. That's what they're used to. If we leave them to their own devices, they'll retire at the end of their career with a drawer full of 5.5-inch shears and several blending shears that they've picked up along the way, and they'll never move beyond that. But if we expose them to this concept and the new tools that make this concept possible, then all of a sudden you'll see stylists building toolkits that can include 6 or 7 different scissors. And of course, not only is that good for you as a salesperson, but it's good for that stylist because it's going to make them a more efficient hairdresser. Hairdressers who have this whole collection or a significant portion of it tell us that this approach saves them 7 to 10 minutes a haircut. That's huge. That means you can fit an extra client or maybe even 2 into your day, which increases your revenue. But the second words out of their mouth is typically that, oh yeah, and my clients started calling me 3 or 4 weeks after the haircut saying, what are you doing different? This is the best haircut you've ever given me. And that's because these tools create perfect texture and they allow stylists to achieve different techniques with much more ease. And so effectively they improve the results that the hairdresser gets. You end up doing better haircuts. And the amazing part is, I've heard that same thing from some of the finest platform stylists and educators in the industry who are using our tools, who are coming back to me saying, hey, look, I'm already considered an elite hairdresser. They pay me to go out and educate other people, but guess what? My work looks way better with your tools. So imagine what it does for that average hairdresser who's maybe struggling to be competitive in a tight market. And all of a sudden the quality of their haircuts looks better because these tools don't make the mistakes that hairdressers make when they're trying to do some of these things manually. So let's talk about what the toolkit should contain. And really, what a proper toolkit should contain, first off, is that 5.5 or 5 3/4 inch shear that every stylist is used to working with. And the reason that we still feel like a hairdresser needs that is that's the perfect tool for cutting against your fingers. When you're cutting against your fingers, you really only need a blade that reaches from the tip of your finger to your second knuckle. And so a 5.5 inch shear is the perfect tool to do that with. And so we encourage stylists to still have a tool like that because they also need a shorter blade when they're cutting in the nape of the neck and areas like that. Otherwise they impact against the shoulders and things like that. So there's a place for a shear of this length. But when the stylist changes from cutting the hair held between their fingers to doing scissor over comb, a short blade like this is not the right tool to use at that point because then they're going comb, snip, snip, comb, snip, snip, and that's never going to yield a very good blend or taper like a barber would do. A barber, of course, would be using a longer 6.5 or 7 inch shear, and they'd be going comb, cut, comb, cut, comb, cut, and that way you get the clean blend and the nice taper that scissor over comb is all about. So hairdressers trying to do scissor over comb with a 5.5 inch shear are not using the tool that a barber would use, even though they're doing a barbering technique. So we encourage stylists to have, for their second pair of shears, a longer blade. And they need a second pair of shears regardless, because you never know if this is your only good shear and you drop it on a hard floor, you can get a nick that's so bad in the blade that you can't even completely close the blade. It locks up on it. And now, if you don't have a backup pair of shears, how do you finish that client's haircut? You know, that's just not a realistic way to approach hair. So every stylist should just accept the fact that they need to have at least 2 good quality shears that they can back each other up with. And all we're saying is, instead of having 2 5.5s, have a 5.5 and then a 6.5 or a 7, so that you've got the perfect shear to use for those techniques. And it's not just scissor over comb. Cutting on the skin is easier with a longer blade. Point cutting deeply into the hair is easier with the longer blade. Cutting around the client's face, you know, when you've got the client right there and you're cutting in their face, if you're doing it with a 5.5-inch shear and you're doing baby bangs, you're literally banging against their nose as you work across those bangs. Whereas with a longer 7-inch shear, you can be way back here cutting those baby bangs without really intimidating the client and making them feel uncomfortable having you banging their nose with your hand. So, you know, a longer blade, cutting on the skin, cutting around the face, cutting scissor over comb, or really any technique where you're not holding the hair between your fingers, longer blades are the way to go. So for your second pair of shears, you buy a longer blade, and if, God forbid, you drop your short shear and it's so damaged that you can't keep using it, you just do everything with the longer blade, and you have to pay attention for a few days to where you're stopping when you're cutting against your fingers. But that's a much better solution than having two short shears and no bigger tool for the techniques, where a longer tool makes it easier and more efficient to get the work done. I mean, imagine connecting around the bottom of a bob line with a 7-inch shear versus a 5 or 5.5. You know, with the short shear, it takes 15, 20 cuts to get all the way around, where you can do it in 3 or 4 cuts with a longer blade. So there's a lot of reasons why a longer blade is an important tool for a hairdresser to add to their toolkit. Now, once we've established that, the next thing that the stylist needs is a blending shear. Now, they probably already have that blending shear that they got in beauty school, but the way blending shears from other manufacturers work is they have a little V on the end of each tooth that holds a certain amount of hairs in place, and then they have a sharp blade on the straight side that comes and cuts all those hairs off at the exact same point within the section. This is why traditional thinning shears leave lines in the hair, because when you close a shear like that on a section and you've cut all the hairs that you cut at the exact same point in the section, you're going to see kind of a dotted line in that section. And so if you watch stylists using thinning shears, they do crazy stuff like half cutting and all kinds of changing angles in the middle of a cut to try and avoid leaving the line. But really, the true solution is to get a seamless blender. A seamless blender from VIA works a completely different way. It has a blunt edge on this side that literally pushes the hair across razor sharp teeth, but there are no V's on the end of the teeth to hold the hair in place. So the hair is cut in motion, and each individual hair is cut to a different length. With a tool like this, you can literally cut and comb out without ever leaving any marks, even cutting right on the surface in light colored hair like this. You can't see at all where I'm cutting. You know, I'm sure the camera can't really pick it up, but it's literally completely seamless. And I could go over and over and over again in the same area and still never make a mark. The hair would get thinner and lighter over time, but you'd never see a cutting mark from the shear. But the other thing is, because when it's closed, the only thing that the hair is exposed to is that blunt blade, there's no drag either. Because the other problem with typical thinning shears is if you were to try and do this, you're going to pull that client's hair because the hair is being dragged across the sharp blade on this side, which causes it to pull the client's hair. So seamless blenders are the solution to both of the big problems with old-fashioned thinning shears, that they pull hair and that they leave marks in the hair. So every stylist should just upgrade their old blending shear to one of these. And guess what? They want to. If you let them try this, again, you'll never sell this shear unless you bring it into the salon, put it in their hand and say, here, try this. In fact, what you want to do is observational selling. Look around your salon. If you see anybody using a thinning shear, walk up and say, here, try this. Or walk up and say, are you going to do any blending on this client? Because we have a new blending tool that'll just blow your mind. Why don't you play with this while I go ahead and inventory your other salon products? So, you know, these are tools that you want to get into people's hands and let them try, because if they try it, they are going to want to buy it. And whether they have the money that day or they start saving their tips to buy it the next time you come in, they're going to want to buy it because this shear makes their job easier and more fun to do. So that's the seamless blender. Now the next tool is the 14-tooth point cut texture shear. And in this case, I'll use the classic version. So the 14-tooth point cut texture shear is the perfect shear to replace point cutting for a hairdresser. Now most hairdressers will tell you that they spend a significant portion of every single day of their life point cutting with the tip of their scissors. And what are they trying to do? What they're trying to do is they're trying to create separation in the section, but they want to do it in a way where you don't see a hard point of origin, you don't see a notch there. So they don't want to use an old-fashioned texture shear that cuts little castle walls into the hair. And so instead they do this incredibly time-consuming process of point cutting multiple times into every section, sometimes 10 or 15 times into each section, trying to create that soft finish in the hair. Well, guess what? This shear does that. This shear creates separation in a way where you never see the point of origin of the separation. So the hair is beautifully separated when I just make a quick cut with it, and yet there's no little notches anywhere. You'll never find them. You can challenge the hairdresser to look for them, and they are not there because the hair is cut on little sweeps off of each tooth as it slides across, and therefore there's never any hard little square notches in there. It looks exactly like you went in and point cut it out with the tip of your shear. So again, you don't have to look far at all to spot a hairdresser in the salon that's point cutting, because they're all in there point cutting all day long. And so you walk up to them and you say, how deep are you point cutting into that section? And they'll say, oh, I'm going in about an inch or whatever. And just tell them, okay, try something. Cut across the section about that same depth with this shear, and then look at what you got. And what they're going to see is it's going to look like they just point cut it beautifully. And so they're going to want to buy this scissor too. One cut with it. And again, it doesn't pull or drag either, because it works on that same principle as the blending shear. But because the teeth are wider and the separations are wider, you start getting that visual separation in the hair, which is effectively what you get from point cutting. Now, what if that hairdresser has a ton of Hispanic clients or Asian clients who just have really thick, heavy hair? This shear might not remove enough. This shear, you might have to make so many cuts with it to take enough hair out that you want to use instead a more aggressive texture shear, and that's where the 10-tooth version comes in. So the 10-tooth on thicker, heavier hair is going to give you the effect of point cutting in that. You can use it on finer hair too if you want to create a more dramatic texture in the hair. And you can even do whole haircuts with it, bringing up a section and cutting multiple times till it's gone completely. But you'll do that faster with this one than you would with the 14 or the blender, which take less hair with a single closure. So that's where the 10-tooth comes in. And again, this is the swivel version, but it's available also in the classic version. All right. The next shear, and now we're back to the classic handle, is our 3D texture shear. And this is a really fun idea. This is an idea that actually Irvin Russ came up with, which is to combine a couple blending teeth with some texturizing teeth to create multi-level texture within a section. It also can be used for blending on women's cuts in particular. It's a beautiful way to blend hair. So this is another great tool. And again, all you have to do is let stylists try them. They will see the effect of the shear. They'll know which ones of these are right for them. And if they're smart, they'll probably find that darn near every one of them will add something to their toolkit to make them a more efficient hairdresser. So the 3D texturizing shear is an awesome modern blender that also creates three-dimensional texture within the hair, and it's just a fun tool to play with. And if you put it in people's hands and have them try it, they will fall in love with it and they will want to get it and want to add it to their toolkit. So that's the beauty of it. And then finally, the slide cutting shear is another terrific tool because, you know, hairdressers for years have been trying to slide cut with precision shears. But a precision shear, like the regular cutting shear that we started with, or like the Dry Evolution, they are designed to cut straight, clean lines. That's why they're called precision shears, right? Well, the way they do that is by having an edge that's finished in such a way that it grips the cuticle of the hair and keeps it from moving away as you're closing the shear on the hair. That's what allows them to cut a straight line. Well, guess what? If you take that kind of an edge and you slide it against the hair, the edge is stronger than the hair. So what's going to happen is you're going to peel the cuticle of the hair away if you're slide cutting with a precision shear. So you really shouldn't be doing that. But of course, slide cutting shears didn't even exist till just a few years ago. So many hairdressers got in the habit of doing it. and they don't realize that they're damaging the client's hair, but they do realize that it's very easy for the shear to sometimes catch in the hair, and sometimes they'll have the momentum as they're sliding, and this blade will bite into the hair because it's designed to grip the hair, and they'll close it suddenly and lop a chunk out of the middle of the head, which if you say that to a hairdresser, most of them will nod and go, yeah, that happened to me last week. Well, guess what? If you have a proper slide cutting shear, you just slowly close it as you slide, and it removes the hair. The faster you close it, the more hair it takes. The slower you close it, the less hair it takes. And if you suddenly close it, it pushes the hair away, and you don't cut a big chunk out, so that you don't have that risk of accidentally lopping a big chunk out of the middle of somebody's head. So what we're really talking about is a shear that's easier to use. It's more fun to use. It's better for the client's hair to use. And so this is why we really recommend every stylist should add one of these to their toolkit as well. It's great for any kind of situation where you don't want to create bluntness. For example, when you're cutting curly hair, oftentimes it's better to do it with a slide cutting shear where you just can't cut a hard notch in there at all. But there's many situations where you just don't want to create bluntness, and cutting the hair with a shear that pushes the hair is the way to accomplish that. So for all motion cutting techniques and for all techniques where you want to avoid bluntness, the slide cutting shear is the tool to use. So that's the whole toolkit. You've got your 5.5 or 5 3/4 inch cutting shear, your longer 7-inch cutting shear, your slide cutting shear, your blending shear, one or more of the texture shears, the 14, the 10, or the 3D texture shear. And again, it makes sense really for hairdressers to accumulate all 7 of these tools, and they can be very efficient. But there are a couple of final little caveats. One is that now they could replace either their 5 3/4 inch shear or their 7-inch shear with a 5 3/4 or a 6.8 soft cut shear. And the soft cut is amazing because it's kind of a hybrid between a slide cutting shear and a precision shear. It actually cuts precise, clean, straight lines, look. And yet it does it so softly that you can barely feel it cut at all. So these just sell themselves like our texture shears do if you just put them in people's hands. So for example, the person might want to make their 5 3/4 inch shear a soft cut. It's only $30 more to upgrade to the soft cut. And so why not have the latest technology for your blade on your shorter shear? But how about that longer shear too? And for that, you might upgrade to the Dry Evolution, because Dry Evolution cuts even more precisely in dry hair than any other shear in the industry. That's really what makes Dry Evolution unique. So why not make your long shear a Dry Evolution? They only come in 6 and 7. And that way the shear that you're doing your scissor over comb with is going to be super precise. It's not going to move some of the hair off the end of the blade, which might cause you to have to take that second cut anyway. And so our barbers in the industry are falling in love with Dry Evolution because it cuts perfectly all the time. And because it's made out of that VG10 material, it also has a 3-year edge warranty. So this is a shear that can go 3 years between sharpening, whereas the standard classic and spin have a 1-year edge warranty. Even though many stylists go longer than that before they have to sharpen them, they definitely are going to get a longer lifespan out of the Dry Evolution, and it's just $100 more than the other shears. So they might want to upgrade their long shear to that. That's why these other tools are included in the promotion, because we want that hairdresser to have the most flexibility with how they build their toolkit. And to me, the ultimate toolkit would be a 5 3/4 inch soft cut, a 7-inch Dry Evolution, and then the texture shears and the slide cutting shear, and you would have the most awesome collection of tools on the planet. And guess what? The other advantage of this approach to spreading the work of doing a haircut out over so many different tools is that they all end up lasting forever. You know, all of a sudden, if you're doing all your texturizing with tools that are built for doing that instead of with the tip of your cutting shears, instead of sharpening your shear 2 or 3 times a year because you're dulling the points out point cutting, you all of a sudden are sharpening your shear every 2 or 3 years, and so your shear lasts forever. you know, and because the texture tools do the work of the texture so efficiently, they already last a long time. They can go 3 or 4 years between sharpening as it is, assuming you keep them off the ground. So, you know, having a collection like this reduces your sharpening costs dramatically. Like you might find yourself going whole years without sharpening a shear at all because you're spreading the work over such a variety of tools. So this is a powerful, powerful concept, and it effectively pays for itself both in terms of time saving, increased customer satisfaction, and the lifespan of the shears being extended so dramatically, and the reduction in sharpening costs. So all those things put together make these shears literally pay for themselves. I would argue that over the course of a 10-year period, you could invest today in buying a 7-shear toolkit and even upgrading the 2 of those shears, and you still would only have, you know, what, you know, you'd have maybe $1,400 or something into, you know, the perfect toolkit. And guess what? I bet you within 10 years, you'd get that back in terms of reduction in sharpening costs, in terms of reduction in having to replace your shears going forward because you're never going to wear any of them out. Literally, they'll last your whole career if you're spreading the work out among a collection like that. And so it won't take you 10 years even probably to effectively pay for these tools, not to mention the fact that you might be doing an extra couple haircuts every day, which would pay for those in a matter of a month. If you did a couple of extra haircuts every day with the time that you saved. Or how about if you took half the time? Say you saved 7 minutes a haircut, okay? That's the low end of what stylists are telling us. So say you saved 7 minutes a haircut and you spent 3.5 of those minutes explaining to the stylist the tools and the techniques that you used on their hair. So what brush did you use? What flat iron did you use? What shampoo? What conditioner? What other products did you use in the salon? And how to use them. You can do that in 3 or 4 minutes with the stylist or with a client very easily. But if you don't have that 3 or 4 minutes, you finish their haircut, your other client's already been waiting in the lobby because you're running behind, and you're like, thanks a lot, see you later. And guess what? You don't do any retail then, right? Because you didn't tell them what shampoo to buy, or what conditioner, or what styling aids, and what blow dryer, and what flat iron you used. So spend half the time explaining that stuff to your client at the end, and spend the other half adding an extra client at the end of the day. And if you did that, you'd see your retail sales go through the roof, and your client satisfaction go through the roof, and it's a win-win-win-win-win type situation. So now let's just get down to the pricing. As I said, both shears, the classic and the spin, are $269.95. Doesn't matter what size, doesn't matter whether they're right or left-handed. So a single shear is going to be $269.95, and they're going to get a shear stand, which is a great little gadget that they can stick their scissors into. I should have had this out first, but here it is. And this is wonderful because the stylist can really properly care for their shears by just sticking them in there during the day when they're working and being able to take them out, and that way they're not laying around on the counter where they might get knocked off. And this can be cleaned out properly. You can wash this thoroughly and put it back in. And it has the word soiled printed on the back of it. So if a state board guy comes in and sees the scissors sticking in there, you say, oh yeah, those are my dirty shears waiting to be cleaned, and I'm using my clean shear right now, thanks. You know, so this is a terrific thing to have. They also get a great little scissor case, our 4-shear zipper case, and they get a maintenance kit, which gives them everything they need to take care of their shears: a chamois, an oil pen, finger rings, a service label, and a little instruction booklet on how to take care of their scissors. That's all included in the maintenance kit. And they get a 2-for-1 sharpening coupon, or a free sharpening coupon, which is a $40 value. So altogether, they're getting $89 worth of freebies with the purchase of a single shear, or $85.95, I'm sorry, with the purchase of a single shear. But here's where it really gets good. When they buy 2 pair though, instead of it being $269 times twice plus those other items, they're going to pay a total of $499. So they're going to save $125 buying 2 pairs of shears. If they buy 3 pair, they're going to save $177. 4 shears, they're going to save $248. 5 shears, they're going to save $339, $540, all the way up to 7 shear deal, they save $581 off of already spectacular pricing. Keeping in mind that we're selling them a $269 shear that compares with a Hikari Cosmo that sells for $829. Or in the case of the Dry Evolution, if they choose to upgrade their long shear to that for an extra $100, great. You know, they can do that, and now they got a shear that compares to a $1,000 Matsuzaki or you know, any other really high-end shear. You know, I wouldn't say Hattori Hanzo, because even though they're high-end, the quality of them is not representative of what a high-end shear should be. But any other brand that's selling a shear for $1,000, it's probably made out of VG10, but you're buying it from VIA for $369, or just $100 more than the deal price if you upgrade one of your cutting shears to one of these. If you upgrade to the soft cut, it's only $30 more than the standard version of the Spin or the Classic. And you're going to have that ultra soft cut that's the most modern blade in the industry. We just introduced it this year. So this is just a flat out no-brainer deal. We do this deal at trade shows all over the world, and no one walks away from our booth buying a single shear. They all buy 2 or 3, and we don't even give away the free goods at the shows when we do these deals. We're only giving them the price on the shears. So this is a phenomenal deal. There's nowhere else they can get it but through a distributor like you. It's a spectacular deal. And we give you all these samples, including one left-handed shear, so you've at least got one pair of lefties so they can feel what that feels like. And all of these shears are available left-handed. And again, I can't emphasize enough what a terrific thing that is, because lefties are used to being left out of most deals. So the Ultimate Toolkit Deal is exactly what the title is. It is the ultimate way for a stylist to equip themselves with a collection of tools that can last their entire career and that can save them enough money over the course of several years to pay for itself. So I hope you'll have great success getting out there and selling this promotion. The thing I'll leave you with is also encourage your customer to only service their shear with our service center, Precision Edge. And the reason that's so important is every single scissor I just showed you has a very unique kind of a cutting edge that no sharpener coming around the salon is going to be able to recreate. And so if they start letting these guys who drive up to the salon sharpen their shears, it's going to spoil their whole experience with the VIA tools. Whereas if they send them back to us, they have a lifetime guarantee. We guarantee from the day they buy it to the day they retire that if there's ever anything that goes wrong with that scissor, we're going to take care of it for them, either by fixing it or replacing it for the life of the shear. But that only works if they use our service. So that's the final thing I would say. And then I guess I should add one other thing, which is that, hey, I am easy to reach. It's mark@viasf.com. And you can email me anytime if you have any questions. You can call our toll-free number anytime if you have any questions and get me on the phone. I'll even, if it's between the times that I'm here in the office in California time, I'm happy to get on the phone with your customer and help you sell the shear if I need to. So take advantage of the fact that you have a resource. If you ever run into a question in the salon that you don't have an answer to, don't make one up. Ask me, and I'll give you a straight answer and an honest answer, including how our shears compare with other brands. But I can tell you right now that no other brand sold in the United States owns their production facilities. Therefore, they're already paying a markup to even get the shear before they then mark it up again to sell it to the stylist. So that's why, at the best, this shear is twice as expensive anywhere else. I mean, a comparable shear would be twice as expensive from any other manufacturer, and that's at a minimum. If the manufacturer is also maybe trying to be a little greedier with every scissor that they sell, it can be 3 or 4 times as much. So the VIA shears are the best value in the industry. Our concept of the toolkit concept really only works with VIA shears because no one else has tools like our seamless blender or point cut texture shears or 3D texture shears and so on. So this is a deal that can really allow you to help hairdressers change their life, make their job easier, make their job more enjoyable, make them get better results that their client and they can see, and do it all in less time than they've ever done it before. So good luck with this promotion, and certainly let us help you all the way, and we hope you have great success with it. Thanks for watching.